students. Today, in our course of political theory, we will be talking about the topic justice. Myself, Sumit Sarma. I am an assistant professor in the Department of Political Science at HPB Girls College, Golaghat. You can also find the YouTube link of this particular tutorial in Assamese language in the link provided below. Justice. We all know that justice is of central importance in political practice and theory. In defending or opposing laws, public policies, and administrative decisions of the government, appeals are made to notions of justice. Justice is also invoked in social and political movements, civil disobedience, and satyagraha campaigns. Thus, the civil rights or civil liberties movements are essentially movements for justice. So the Dalit, feminist, or the environmental movements, all of them come within the category for the want of justice. So first of all, let us see what do we mean when we say justice, the very idea of justice. So the word justice is derived from the Latin words gengere, which means to bind or to tie together, and also jus, a bond or a tie. As a binding or joining idea, justice serves to organize people together into a right or fair order of relationship by distributing to each person his or her due share of rights and duties, rewards and punishment. We are aware that the Roman Emperor Justinian stated some of the precepts of justice. It's in Latin language. It's known as alterum non latere, or not to harm or injure others, and sum cuique triburi, to allocate to each what is due to him, to her. We can also see here in the slide that justice is an idea of fairness or virtuous act or a moral act or arrangement. This is the question we can pose. And also at the same time, as I had just mentioned, that justice is whether giving each person his due fair share of law. This is what justice meant in the ancient Greek city-states, and Socrates too talks about it. It implies something which is not only right to do and wrong not to do, but also which someone can claim from us as his moral right. So justice is a kind of a moral principle. A moral political value, justice is interlinked with such other moral political values as liberty, equality, and fraternity. What makes a society or a state just, in a basic sense, is its right or fair ordering of human relations by giving to each person his or her due rights and duties as well as due rewards and punishments. Justice does this by bringing about adjustments between the principles of liberty, equality, cooperation, etc. Traditionally then, the principle of justice was taken to be a principle which balances or reconciles the principles of liberty, equality, etc. Such a balancing or reconciling is done with reference to some ultimate value. We can take the example, the value of the greatest happiness of the greatest number, or the value of the freedom and equality of all the members of a society. In this context, it may be noted in passing that it is the balancing or reconciling nature of justice which is represented in the figure of personified justice, who holds a balance in her hand. We might have seen in most of the Bollywood movies, there is a very famous saying, Andha Kanun. We can see the statue of justice as being blindfolded. Now let us see what are the sources of justice. Since ancient time, religion has been a major source of justice. People claim justice on the basis of different religious scriptures. And also there are historical traditions, customs, natural law, reason and rationality from which justice is sought to be derived. And if we look at ancient thinkers like Plato, for whom the fundamental values, virtues, wisdom, justice, temperance and courage. So justice was the important fundamental virtue in a human being. And the person with the moral capacity of being just was to be qualified as philosopher king. And also Aristotle talked about justice as being the notion of equality, proportionality and maintenance of equilibrium. For him, justice would prevail if there was just a maintenance of balance in the society between the master and the slaves. In recent times, we have seen Rawls' idea of justice as fairness, Nozick, the well-known communitarian philosopher who said justice as entitlement, and also we have Amartya Sen, for whom capability was most important thing to be just. We also have the notions of equality, liberty, and rights based on the concept of justice. So justice is the base of all other political philosophy. So briefly, let us see how justice did have evolved over a period of time. We will talk about the evolution of justice in the succeeding chapters. So here I will just briefly go through it. So we can see the idea of justice was discussed right from the Greek city-states. Socrates, Plato, and his disciple Aristotle talked about justice among different classes of people, and it differed according to them. And we have also the Roman Empire, a powerful empire in ancient time. Thinkers like Cicero, Plutarch all talked about the just king and the philosophy of being just towards his subject. These empires will have to be noted that they were also had some democratic principles where the subject had certain rights to a certain extent over the king. So they too saw justice in a particular way. In the medieval period, we have seen that there are many religious philosophers like St. Augustine and Thomas Aquinas for whom justice derived from being religious or from the religious texts and scriptures. So Augustine talks about the two city-states where the city of the god was more important and human beings should try to achieve that. And we also have certain secular philosophy during the medieval period for whom the practicality of life was more important. The king, the prince was more important than the religion, and where people can find justice from the king. And in the modern time, we saw the onset of liberalism, or we can say the modern industrial capitalism, where people began to see justice in a liberal way. People like Adam Smith, the contractualist Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau, and many others liberal thinkers and idealists of that time saw justice in the light of the growing industrial capitalism. And also towards the postmodern age, we have seen justice has also changed its meaning. Justice is more today about not just individual liberty, but also communitarian rights. Also the capacity of an individual to enjoy the justice, as shown by the famous Nobel laureate Amartya Sen. So moving on, let's have some fun here. I know we all like watching movies, so why not watch a movie here? This is a movie which really was released somewhere in the 80s. Not a well-known movie with big stars, but a very interesting movie to watch. The Hindi version is Ek Ruka Hua Faisla, but we can also watch the original version which was in English, The 12 Angry Men. So just to give you a plot of the story, the movie revolves around how a group of jury who has to decide on the fate of a young boy who is charged with the murder of an old man. So most of these people, the 12 people sitting to decide the jury, they had already a preconceived notion that the boy was a murderer, but then one person had some doubt, and over a period of time, with very well articulated deliberation, how these people made up their mind to change their decisions. The movie is quite interesting, and I think we should all watch it. The link of the movie is also provided here. Now let us see what are the different types of justice. The first and one of the oldest well discussed type of justice is the procedural justice. So as the name suggests, justice based on just, fair and transparent rules and procedure. So principles of procedural justice have traditionally been based on the idea of formal equality of persons, that is, their equality as human beings or as subjects of the rule of law, irrespective of their differences in gender, religion, race, caste, wealth, etc. Often, rights-based justice is seen as procedural justice, whereas need-based justice is seen as substantive or distributive justice. So another type of justice is the distributive justice. So the just distribution of goods and services, benefits and responsibilities comes under the notion of distributive justice. It may also imply social justice if equality of status, dignity of individuals, and minimum needs of people are ensured by the society, community, or the state. We'll later talk about it in more details. Another type of justice is the retributive justice. So retributive justice is reasonable and appropriate to the crime. So when the person has committed a certain crime, he or she should be given an appropriate and reasonable amount of punishment in consonance with the crime committed. Another type of justice is the restorative justice, repairing the harm caused to the individual and the meant to the offender to bring back to the mainstream. So we can see this kind of justice being applied in the idea of juvenile crimes, where children below the age 18 or 16 are actually given a chance to restore or their own innocence by trained in different ways. So another kind of newly evolving justice is the global justice, which means pursuing justice at the international level. So we can also find the different types of justice or different meanings of justice in a YouTube video of the link of which I have provided here. So let us talk more about the procedural justice. So what does this mean? So following just rules and procedures shall result into fair outcome. So the people who support procedural justice believe that rules and procedures should be just for the outcome to be just and fair. So they believe in the idea of fair play using just rules and institutional fairness. And also we have the procedural justice is based on 4 principles. Being fair in the process, the most important one, then being transparent in actions, providing opportunity of voice, and also being impartial in decision. So decisions should not be biased or partial. It is more closer to individualistic and the liberalist idea of justice. And both logic and Rawls' theory of justice are based on the principle of procedural justice. And there is also formal, legal and institutional justice, which also will come under the procedural kind of justice. Another important division of justice or the type is the distributive justice. So distributive justice believes in the just and fair distribution of social primary goods, rights, liberty, income, wealth, etc. For them, distribution is of utmost importance. Idea of fair share and realized justice. So whatever people have, the society, the state, it should be based on the idea of fair share. And the basis of distribution should be merit, need, equality or equity and moral values. And also attainment of just social order on the basis of some common agreed upon criteria like common goods. So different people in the society will have different kind of need. So there has to be certain kind of common goods, common understanding about goods and the basic needs which has to be addressed first. So that is what distributive justice believes in. And also it's a question of right versus commons. And it is also a kind of substantive justice. Moving on, let us talk a bit about differences between procedural justice and the distributive justice. It is more about the ideological or the differences in principle. Procedural justice believes in fair play, wherein more importance is given to the technique, to the process. Whereas distributive justice believes in fair share. And also procedural kind of justice stands for formal justice, whereas distributive justice stands for substantial justice. So in formal justice, we have kind of institutions in the constitution, whereas substantial justice is more about how the executive and the legislature work on the ground. And also in procedural justice, they believe more on the equality of opportunities, whereas distributive justice stands for equality of outcome. So it is an outcome-based justice. Consistent with liberal ideology is the procedural justice, whereas the distributive justice is more closer to communitarian and socialist philosophy. Procedural justice believes in just rules and institutional fairness, whereas distributive justice stands for realized justice. It just means that how justice is being played out in real life and not just in institution and constitution. And we also have the theories of justice. So this justice has been, since it has been an ancient philosophy, there are so many theories on it, about which we'll be discussing in the upcoming chapters. So what does theory do actually? Theory is a kind of a conceptual map. It's a hypothesis, model and approaches to help understand justice and attainment of it. So liberal theories of justice based on social contract, there are 2 types of theory actually which is based on liberal theory. The Rawls theory, which stands for justice as fairness, and also there is communitarian logic theory, which talks more about justice as entertainment. And also we have some non-social context-based theories. The utilitarian theory, the greatest happiness to the greatest number. Jeremy Bentham and J.S. Mill, they believed in the utilitarian theory. And also we have Kantian theory, Immanuel Kant supported, which stands for moral duty based on supreme principle of morality. We also have capability-based approach to justice by Amartya Sen. We'll be talking about all these theories in the upcoming chapters. And newly developed there is the feminist theory of justice, and also you have the Marxist theory of justice. So justice has been a well-deliberated philosophy in recent times. So let us deal with a question and ask ourselves. In India, we hear a lot about the reservation system. The supporters of it believe that yes, it has to be given to compensate the injustice that has been done to a section of people since ancient times. Whereas people who oppose it say that this is the injustice, this promotes inequality, and they should not be punished for the misdeeds of their ancestors. So I would like you all to watch this fantastic movie called Arakshan and think about it and analyze on both sides of the debate. The link of the movie is provided below. Now let us check your progress. So first of all, I want you to solve this Google form, which is based off a kind of multiple choice questions, and also write 2 essays briefly explaining the idea and the concept of justice, and also bring out the differences between distributive and procedural justice. So in today's class, we learned about the meaning of justice and also the different types as well as theories of justice. So now you have a conceptual idea of what justice actually is. So in the next class, we will be talking about the John Rawls principle of theory or the justice as fairness. Rawls in contemporary time has been remarkably famous due to his book called Theory of Justice. So we will be talking more about that in the upcoming chapters. So for today, thank you. Please complete your Google form and submit it as soon as possible.